Welcome back, everybody. So today, let's talk about the Sinister Six rankings we did. But this time, I'm going to rank each franchise. I'm not going to rank them by each particular movie, but by the franchise as a whole. And this is going to be a really interesting video because the way I view these movies, it's hard because I want to pick it. I want to have it like I want to choose these in terms of like entertainment or rewatchability, but also being subjective is also a thing that I want to do too. But to me, it's one of those things where subjectivity is kind of objective as well. So it's like I don't know, whatever I say, I feel like people are going to be annoyed at me despite that. Just because I've really got different opinions on these six franchises. And if you do not know what the Sinister Six is, it is six franchises, 50 movies that me and a lot of my other friends, Derek from Derek's Horror Corner, Leboman, and Desmond's Flicks, we all are ranking 50 films, six franchises, which are Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Chucky, Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Friday the 13th. And all of these franchises are special to me. They are. So it was really, really hard. It was very difficult to choose between all of these. But let's get started. And now, here we go. My number six, if I had to rank the franchise, would be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. Now, this one, the first one is the scariest movie ever made. I love 2. 3 is really boring. 4 is so bad it's good. Then you've got the remake and the beginning, which are good. And then you've got Texas Chainsaw 3D, which is dog shit, in my opinion. And then you've got Leatherface, which is just fine. So this is a franchise where it's very mixed bag all around. But in terms of rewatchability, I really don't want to watch these ones again much. I really love the first 2. The first 2 I can rewatch anytime. But 2 out of 7 or 8 movies, it's like that's not much of a thing to rewatch. Much of a franchise to rewatch for me. I only care about 2 of them, basically, in terms of rewatching them. But, like I said, 4 of them are good, I think. The first 2 and the remake and the prequel. I think those are all good, and everything else is just okay to terrible. So, it's a really mixed bag. So, and in terms of, like, these movies, they're basically, and this is repetitive for a horror movie franchise, but these are repetitive movies. Like, they're the same kind of thing in each movie, for the most part. So I think that this one falls under that way of me thinking that this is just not very rewatchable. The first 2 are, everything else is just fine. Nothing else is really rewatchable for me for this franchise. So that's why it is my number 6. And then my number 5 would be, oh no, don't, like, whenever I say this, don't, everybody shouldn't freak out now, but A Nightmare on Elm Street is my number 5. Now, A Nightmare on Elm Street is a franchise that I love. I love Freddy Krueger. I think he's great. But his movies, I've never had the urge to rewatch all of his movies. Love the first 3, like 4. 5 and 6 are okay. New Nightmare I love. And then the remake is not good, but it's average, fine. So it's a franchise that has more that I like as opposed to dislike. But I think that this one to me, like, it's never been one that I wanted to rewatch. I just have never felt that urge to rewatch these films. Like, I really do love Freddy as a character. I do love some of these characters, like Alice or Nancy. Like, they're really great final girls. I really like a lot of these characters, and I like the kills. I like the gore, and this is one of the, like, if I gave this in terms of, like, uniqueness, this is the most unique out of all of these franchises that I'm ranking, because this one is about a guy who kills you in your dreams, and you can find very creative ways to kill people in dreams. But it's just so low because it's never been one that I wanted to rewatch much. I've seen these a lot of times, but I've never gone to A Nightmare on Elm Street for like rewatchability for the franchise. Even though I love the first 3 and New Nightmare, but it's just never one that I've loved. Tell me why I'm wrong, because I really just I've never felt the urge to rewatch these a lot. Like I have seen them a lot, but I've never had the urge to watch them all the time. Even though they're great, even though a lot of them are great, or at least half of them are great for me. So that's my number 5. And then my number 4 would be Scream, the franchise. Only 4 movies in this one, so this was hard to rank because Scream is one of those franchises that's love or hate it franchise where people love it for its uniqueness, but people also hate it for being so meta with its humor. And I can understand going into Scream 3 and 4 with the meta humor that people are like I understand why people wouldn't like it. But this one has such great characters, such great writing, such interesting killers in every one of the movies. Like I love how this franchise is about real life people who are killers and a real life heroine. Well, real life, like it's still fictional, but I love the fact that it feels real. It doesn't feel like it's fake. It feels like this is a franchise that could happen in real life. Like for the most part, besides some kills that are not realistic, this feels like the most realistic of all the movies. So I really appreciate that. I really appreciate all the characters, the writing. The gore is fine. It's typical like knife stabs. There's nothing really interesting about the gore, but I like it. But the characters and the story are what make these movies great, as opposed to just kill, 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 which is fine. This one is just lower for me because I love the first two. The first two are some of my favorite horror movies ever, and then 3 and 4 are okay. This is half and half. Like 2 of them are great, 2 of them are okay, but it's not super rewatchable either. Like I think it's more watchable than A Nightmare on Elm Street, the franchise, for me, because I've seen these more, I think. Even though, again, I've seen Nightmare on Elm Street a lot, but I never have the urge to watch them over and over all the time. This one, Scream, I can watch a little bit over the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Just because I think 1 and 2 are so damn good. And 3 and 4 are fine. So that's why Scream is my number 4. And then my number 3 would be the Chucky franchise. 7 movies. Love the first 2. Like 3. Love Bride of Chucky. Seed of Chucky's okay. Curse of Chucky I love, and Cult of Chucky I love. So there's a giant amount of love for this franchise for me, because even at its worst, which people say Seed of Chucky is like the worst horror movie ever made, which is absolute bullshit. Like people who say that haven't really seen many horror movies. It's just a horror movie that's not a horror movie, it's a comedy. So I get why people hate it, I do. But even at its worst, I think this is still an incredibly entertaining and fun franchise. Chucky to me is in terms of like Chucky versus Freddy, Chucky is the one I prefer, and I can easily watch his movies over Freddy's. And I keep dogging on, I'm not trying to dog on A Nightmare on Elm Street. I love that franchise. It's just not one that I typically want to rewatch. But Chucky just is one of those characters that, to me, no matter how many movies we get, I love every single one of them that he is in, and I love him, and I love Jennifer Tilly as well. I love this movie franchise is always so different. After the first 3, it's a different movie in each one. Like the first 3 are typically the same, where it's like Chucky's trying to get Andy, or Tyler, I guess, in the third one, where he's trying to put his soul into one of their bodies, but he's killing people along the way. Bride of Chucky is a Bride of Frankenstein kind of thing, where like he reanimates his ex-girlfriend that he kills and brings her back. And then you got Seed of Chucky, which is a family drama comedy. Like it's so odd, but again, I love the uniqueness of this franchise, whether you like that movie or not. And then you've got Curse of Chucky, which goes back to the first one, but it's got kind of giallo feel to it, which is really, really interesting and really awesome. And it just fully gives a great completion on the beginning of the first movie to this movie, like how it connects to that. And then Cult of Chucky, which is just batshit. I think it's so fun and so interesting, and I love Nika. Like every one of these movies is just so different after the first 3. The first 3 are typically the same. But like I said, then Bride of Chucky is him with his wife, and then him with his kid in Seed of Chucky, and then him in a house alone with Nika, and then in Curse it's multiple Chuckies. Like, I love how this franchise tries to do something different and unique in every movie. They don't just do the same thing. even though it is the same kind of thing, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's why Chucky is my number three. And then my number two. This was hard to choose. I between these two franchises, like, this was so incredibly hard to choose because I love these two franchises. But my number two would be Friday the 13th. Now, Friday the 13th, grew up with it. Part three is the first one I saw. I love the first six. Even though these movies in terms of all these franchises I'm ranking, this is a very repetitive franchise. I think the first six are so entertaining and fun, and I love them, and I've seen them so many times. Then part seven I think is okay, but it's kind of starts to fall off the deep end where like it's just cliches that are not as enjoyable in part seven. And then part eight is really bad, really terrible, one of the worst. And then you've got Jason Goes to Hell, which is underrated and really a cool, unique movie for being in that franchise. And then Jason X, which I think is bad but not very entertaining, even though people love it for its badness. But I really don't love it that much. And then the Freddy vs. Jason, which I really love, and the Friday remake, which I really don't like. Besides Derek Mears, I don't like anything else about the movie. So this franchise has about, so there's 12 movies. There's 7 movies that I love in the franchise. So it's a little over half that I love. The other half I like, or I could take it or leave it. So this is one of the franchises in this ranking that I feel like, despite having some worse ones than some that I've already ranked, it still has some of the better ones because the Friday movies, the first 6, are really just incredible. Every single one of them is just every single one of the first 6 I can just rewatch anytime. They are incredibly rewatchable. They are so fun. I love the characters. I love the gore, even though they're typically the same movie every movie. So I feel like a hypocrite because Nightmare on Elm Street is so low, but I love this one just on entertainment value alone. Really love that. And then again, there's some that I think are bad and really bad, but like I'd still watch this franchise as a whole as opposed to another franchise I've said before this in my ranking. So Friday the 13th to me is an interesting franchise that I really love, despite having some bad ones. So that is my number 2. And then my number 1, again, this was so hard to choose between Friday the 13th and this, but my number 1 is Halloween. And everybody's going to think I'm a Halloween fanboy because I love Halloween. I notice a lot of people just think, oh, if you pick Halloween in terms of the big 3, you're a fanboy. To me, this is just one of the most, even though it's got some bad ones in it, like Friday the 13th, the first one is just so incredibly special to me. The first 2, honestly, are so incredibly special to me. I love the first 2. I love the second one as much as the first one, even though I can say it's not as good of a movie. And I love the third one. The third one is a very unique film in its own franchise that they had the balls to do, even though it didn't work well on their part. They brought him back for part 4, but still, they at least tried to do something unique and different, and it worked for me. And then I love part 4. And then 5 and 6 I think are just okay. They're not terrible, but they're not great. And then H2O I love. And then Resurrection is the worst one. I hate Resurrection for the most part. And then the Rob Zombie ones, I think the first Rob Zombie Halloween is fine. And then the second one I actually really like, even though I feel like they're both on the same like ratio. Like they're both fine. Even though there are things I love about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 more than the first Halloween that Rob Zombie did. And then you've got Halloween 2018, which is incredible. I really love that one as well, and I love how they harken back to the original. It feels so close to the original, and it feels like it works probably the best in terms of the sequels. So in this franchise, it's also my number 1 because there's only one that I think is bad. All the other ones, even 5 and 6, which I think really do suffer from being, like 5 was released like less than a year after 4. They rushed that quick because 4 made so much money. And then 6 just had such a troubled production production nightmare where like nothing went right, and like they kept changing everything, so it became a bad product. But those still have really great thrills and kills and cinematography, 5 and 6. So even whenever Halloween is at its quote unquote worst, Resurrection, but every other one I really think are fine or I love. So this is the reason why it's my number one, because I think subjectively, like, the first Halloween is one of the best horror movies ever, and it still holds up, and people still love it. Halloween 2, yeah, you can argue with issues from it, but I love everything about it. It's also nostalgic. It's the first Halloween movie I saw. And then Halloween 3 is unique in its own right, though. I have it in this franchise, and 4 is just such a great horror movie, and then 5 and 6 are okay, like I said. And H2O, not really a great horror movie, but I love Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie. She is truly moving and incredible in that movie, and I like the side characters too, honestly. And again, Resurrection sucks. Rob Zombie 1 and 2 are fine. Halloween 2018 is really fantastic. So there's so many fantastic ones in this franchise. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, H2O, and then 2018. So that's 7 of them out of 11. That to me ranks or makes me think that this should be the highest. And also just because Halloween 2 is the first one I saw in terms of all these franchises, so I love that as well. I just love the horror of this one. I feel like this is the most effective horror franchise out of the 6 that I've ranked. So that's why Halloween is my number one in ranking the Sinister 6. So that's it on this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. How would you rank all 6 of these franchises? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I feel like a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but also there might be people that agree with me too. So that's my ranking on the Sinister 6, and check out all my other videos. I did the ranking the Sinister 6 with detail for each of the movies. Each of the 50 movies, and I've also done reviews on each of the 50 movies before that. And check out the other people who are doing it, who are awesome friends of mine. Derek's Horror Corner, Lebo Man, Desmond's Flicks. Go check them all out. Tell me down below what you think of my ranking, and thank you guys so much for watching.